Hi, I'm Jeff Jarvis, and the question was whether there are good examples of hyperlocal journalism that are actually working both commercially and journalistically. Right? So, yes, there are. If you go to newsinnovation.com, we at City University of New York Graduate School of Journalism did a lot of research on the emerging ecosystem of local news that we believe is going to come up. And as part of that, we did research with local bloggers and sites to see what's working and not. And we need to update that as well. But there are, a smattering. It's not like it's happening across the whole world or certainly even the country. But there are blogs that are starting to make it. We found hyperlocal bloggers covering towns of 50,000 who are bringing in as much as $200,000 revenue and more today, which is to say that it is possible. We then looked at CUNY about how to optimize that. And we think that by selling different services to advertisers, by becoming members of networks that bring in new revenue and aggregate audience together, they can make a lot more. We projected $350. They can then hire people. Most of these places, to make it work, are hiring people to create more content. So, yes, hyperlocal sites that are covering their towns well, among them, not revealing nothing about their financials, West Seattle blog, Baristanet in New Jersey is kind of the queen of this, and so on. Few other models. One is TBD in Washington, which was started by Albritton, a TV channel that also has Politico. Has started a local news site with 33 journalists, I think total, 50 staff, working with a network of 200 bloggers in the area, trying to make their businesses work and get content and aggregate the best of that and become an ecosystem. So compare 33 journalists to 750 at the Washington Post. It's an imbalance, and maybe in a sense an unfortunate imbalance, but on the other hand, it makes journalism profitable, and that means it's sustainable. Finally, I'd point you to patch.com, started by the now president of AOL and then bought by AOL when he moved to that position. Different model where they want to own it all, and they're going to be in 1,000 towns this year. They're hiring a journalist per town and giving that journalist a freelance budget per town. So, in my town in New Jersey, there's a young guy who's, they hire a lot of my former students at CUNY. They also hire former journalists who are now looking for jobs. Doesn't pay a lot, $45,000. They work their asses off. Why would Patch put this much investment into this? Well, you figure that we found out the bloggers could bring in $200,000, $350,000. You figure the weekly paper in town probably brings in neighborhood of $1 million, $2 million a year. So paying $45,000 now doesn't look so insane. The challenge for Patch is to get good content, to make it really a part of the community so it's compelling. If you go to Baristanet, Debbie Gallant, who started it, is really compelling in the community. Does the kid in Patch, get to have that much devotion? And everybody has to solve the local sales problem. And the competition for that now is also obviously Facebook and Groupon and Google. And I think that no one's cracked that yet. I believe that just as we have networks for journalism, we're going to have networks for sales. And I'm dying for people to try that so that we can increase the value of everything, all the ships rise in the tide. Ask me a simple question, you get a long answer.
And this revenue they're getting, is it a mix of advertising and subscriptions?
Great question. It is primarily advertising, no subscription. No. It's very easy for someone to compete with you for free. But what we found that's very, very interesting is revenue from events. The Brownstoner in Brooklyn, New York, runs the regular flea market in Brooklyn, and it's a great business. It's not unlike classified ads. Sell your old coat here on paper, sell it at the flea market. Brooklyn-based is doing block parties where they get liquor sponsorship, and the clubs and restaurants like them, and the readers like it, and all that. I'm seeing a little bit start of education at a local level, teaching people how to be journalists, teaching them how to run video cameras, teaching them other things. So just as the music industry shifted from primary revenue through sales of albums to primary revenue through performances, in a weird way, we're almost headed the same way. Not primary, but I think there's a lot there. I also think there'll be, once we can have the networks to aggregate up local blogs, and Patch may think they can do that on their own, or others may do it across independent entities, then we can do things like get regional and national advertising into them, and we can also get e-commerce into them. Once you have that kind of audience, the Telegraph sells clothes hangers and Panama hats and knee braces. They don't like to admit that. directly to their readers, because they use the audience they have to sell goods that are not being advertised in the paper. Well, we could do the same thing with hyperlocal. So there's a lot of potential to improve this business.
Right. And what about the other end of the scale from hyperlocal, i.e. the business we're in at OneWorld, which is global? Do any of the same principles apply there?
Well, there's Global Post, which put journalists in, I think, 75 cities around the world. And the model there is that they give them a stipend, not much, $10,000, I think $1,000 a month. So not enough to live on, certainly. But for that, they have certain duties, blogging and occasional stories. But the model, interestingly enough, is that then the journalist is known to be a good journalist in that market. And the journalist will get their own freelance assignments from elsewhere. Oh, gee, I need to sign somebody in Berlin. Who? Well, Global Post has somebody. So it's starting to work. They have different revenue models. I think that's that. I think what's also very interesting in your area is that we see the crossing line of advocacy and journalism. And I prefer to think about it as ways that we had more information in the ecosystem. When Human Rights Watch has people in places where there are no journalists, yes, they have an agenda. We know what the agenda is. It's transparent. But now, on that basis, we can judge the information they add in. God bless them. And I think that's important, too, whether it's on a global level or a local level, that we not be too snippy about the idea of advocates. And then at that point, in a world, I haven't been thinking about this lately, but if you do get to the point where WikiLeaks leaks the hell out of Bank of America, the wise company will turn around and leak themselves, right? And realize, look, imagine everything's leaked. What are we embarrassed about? Shouldn't be doing that, right? Well, I believe more and more in an ecosystem of information that even corporations will have to add in source material of credibility and value. And then an aggregator can add value to that by vetting it and finding the best and so on and so forth. But more information is just simply good. And so I think a general atmosphere of transparency will give more for people like you and Daylife, where I'm a partner, to aggregate and to present.
And one more question?
Sure.
Obviously, a lot of people at the moment are putting their faith in apps as a new model of how to pay for journalism. What do you make of that?
Pipe dream. Oh, yeah, I think so. Because the web has already ruined that. The web is already links. Now, mind you, I'm a Guardian loyalist, and I paid for the app, and that's fine, and there'll be some of that. Is it going to change suddenly the entire media market? No. Because, there's always a free competitor. There's always, and it's a linked world. What concerns me about apps is that it takes our linked, connected world back into silos. And there'll be some of it. I mean, I read the New York Times and the Guardian constantly, so I do have the apps, and they're handy, and I love them, and I would pay for them. No argument. But is it the salvation of our industry? No.